So here we go again. We've got another developer complaining about Xbox Series S becoming a bottleneck for some developers. Let's look into this. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So let's talk about Xbox Series S specs and performance. And the reason why I'm making this video today is because I found an article on gamingbolt.com, and as always a link will be in the description of this video below to this article. And in this article they talk about Xbox Series S becoming a bottleneck. I mean, you know, they actually interviewed one of the developers of Trine, I don't know how to pronounce it really. Either way, I'm talking about Frozen Byte, marketing manager. And he was talking about, Xbox Series S. He was asked about Xbox Series S too. Obviously, he was talking about the performance and graphics in their game on Xbox Series S. And that actually looks pretty cool because he did confirm during the interview that Trine 5, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it, will run at 4K 60 frames per second on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, and 1440p 60 frames per second on Xbox Series S. So, clearly Xbox Series S is not a bottleneck for their game. And obviously that's not always going to be the case because every single game is different and different graphics, different goals, I guess. Trine is rather smaller games and an RPG and that kind of stuff, right? So maybe that's why. But we know of number of developers that complained about Xbox Series S, mainly memory system. While in this particular interview, he was talking about graphics. So that's kind of interesting. So this is what he actually had to say about Xbox Series S. More powerful hardware is always better from a developer perspective, he said. I think for more graphically intensive games, the Series S can become a bottleneck as supporting it is required. From a player perspective, I guess it's a nice option to have a more affordable console though. So that makes sense. Also in this article, they talk about the Baldur's Gate 3, where split screen co-op on Xbox Series S, I guess it's not working right. They had some issues with that. That's why Xbox version was delayed. Now, from what I've heard, Xbox ATG Group is working with Larian Studios on fixing, any issues they've got right now. They are helping them optimize their game for Xbox Series S, so that's good. So that's actually, I bet that they will work any of those issues out. But going back to what he said in this interview, that graphics wise Xbox Series S can become a bottleneck. I think that a lot of people will take it out of context, meaning that Xbox Series S, okay, so there's two things. Like, every single piece of hardware has bottlenecks, right? Xbox Series S, Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, each of these consoles have some sort of bottlenecks. I would say that genuinely speaking, this generation memory is a big bottleneck because they did add a lot of features like ray tracing, that kind of stuff. It's all very memory heavy. I know that they I guess both Microsoft and Sony did bet on the SSD and the streaming of textures and everything, the fast SSD and the fact that you can exchange data very fast and stuff, right? But that still uses memory bandwidth, right? So that it's limited. So that limitation is a bottleneck too, depending on what you want to do. Like for a smaller title like Trine 5, I guess that's not really going to be an issue because this game is not graphically intensive. That's why it's going to be 1440p 60 frames per second on Xbox Series S. But then the bottlenecks appear when you've got a PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X game, and you have to, well, scale it down to make it work on Xbox Series S, right? Graphics wise. So graphics obviously involves the GPU, but also memory and stuff, right? So, a lot of times dropping only resolution will not help, because that's not really going to be enough to allow a nice data flow, right? Memory bandwidth may be an issue there. So that's why Xbox came up with all these memory optimizations like direct storage and SFS, for example, right? But problem is that no developers are using it, and I bet that when it comes to Baldur's Gate 3, actually it's not a bet. I know, because developers did confirm that in one of the articles, I think a week or 2 weeks ago, they did say that the issue they came across with Xbox Series S was the memory, or actually, lack of memory, like not enough of memory, right? Because especially when you've got a split screen co-op, you have to run to almost two games simultaneously, I guess, right? I mean, yes, it's a kind of same code, but you have to store a lot of way more stuff in memory. So, like I said, that's where SFS would actually be very helpful, but no developers uses it, right? And that's the problem. I think that Jenny speaking, and I'm actually planning a video about Xbox Series consoles and all these next gen features and how developers don't necessarily use it. So Microsoft did bet on developers using all these features, but not all of them are using it. To be honest with you, hardly any of these developers actually use these features, and a lot of developers are actually relying on these third-party engine providers, that they will do it for them and they can just use it, right? And the fact of the matter is that even Unreal Engine 5, the biggest game engine in the world, they don't even support direct storage right now on PC, right? I mean, it may be different on consoles because they have to use it, otherwise, performance would tank big time, right? But you know what I mean. So yes, Xbox Series S do have bottlenecks, and when you work on a game for both consoles, Xbox Series X and S, and you starting scaling down your game to Xbox Series S, well, you have to do some cuts. And that's what Xbox Series S is all about. That's what optimizing for Xbox Series S is all about too. I'm not sure if you noticed, but there's a lot of games that come with ray tracing mode on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, but but on Xbox Series S, there's no ray tracing. And it's not only about GPU, because people focus on GPUs, GPU this, GPU that. These teraflops are kind of cool to have and that kind of stuff. 6 teraflops would actually be much better. But the biggest issue right now that Xbox Series S, or should I really say developers developing for Xbox Series S, are facing is not enough of memory. I think that's the biggest issue, and that's the biggest mistake Microsoft made with that console, that they just and I know that was a money-saving kind of move, but 2 extra gigs would be much better for this console. A slightly faster memory, I guess, too. But hey, at the end of the day, it is what it is. That's why we end up with some games running at very low resolutions, or 30 frames per second, because you really need that memory bandwidth and to actually push way more data to actually feed the GPU and that kind of stuff, right? So that's the reality, guys. That's why developing for Xbox Series S is a little bit more difficult, or maybe not even more difficult, but more time consuming, because you have to spend more time optimizing for this console, right? So and I'm just wondering when finally developers will start using these next gen features, because I will say it even on my deathbed that Xbox Series S with SFS used is a totally different console. And once developers actually start using this particular feature, it's going to be a game changer. But I've actually spoken with a developer, and I did ask some questions about why developers don't use it, and it's the problem right now is that it's a bit different implementation on PC, because that feature, SF, not SFS, would actually help on PC too, because there's a lot of GPUs on the market, especially NVIDIA GPUs, that don't come with a lot of memory VRAM, like 6 gigabytes, 8 gigabytes. That's still a standard on PC, and that's still not a lot, especially for higher resolution gaming on PC. So SFS would actually help a lot, but developers still haven't really figured out how to implement it. So it's actually one of these features that we may still wait a little bit longer to actually see implemented. Yes, Xbox first party developers will probably implement it, because and hopefully once they do, they will share that knowledge during game developer conferences and that kind of stuff, and other developers will start using these features too. So anyway, guys, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about it. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.